I'm pretty sure there are more videos about Skyrim on YouTube than there are stars in the known universe. But archetypology goes deeper than most, to show you how modern stories share themes with ancient mythology, and why the symbols and images in these stories ultimately arise from the human mind, to reveal deep philosophical and psychological truths. In fact, the theme of a warrior facing down against a terrifying dragon is so prevalent in mythology that it probably explains, at least in part, why Skyrim's popularity, even 9 years after its release, is still extremely high. But what most people don't know is the deeper, psychological significance of the dragon, and what it represents for humankind. You see, one of the things which makes humans special is our capacity for symbolic thought, meaning we can use symbols to represent other ideas, and the dragon is just one such symbol. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung became fascinated with ancient symbols when he realized that the same sorts of themes started popping up everywhere, leading him to theorize that something about the human mind predisposes us to liking certain themes more than others. The dragon as a symbol has many meanings, but the fact that dragons are almost always snake-like seems to arise from the fact that primates have a very natural fear of snakes, which makes sense since if you get bitten by a venomous snake, it's basically game over. That is, until you invent antivenom. Hence, there is something very empowering and inspiring about the hero who overcomes one of mankind's oldest foes in an epic clash. However, the symbol of the dragon has a much deeper meaning, which pertains directly to humankind's psychological situation, and the main plotline in Skyrim illustrates this perfectly. Our tale begins with Alduin, the World Eater. Alduin is the firstborn of the god of time Akatosh. In fact, Akatosh himself appears during the Oblivion Crisis in the form of an enormous dragon. However, Alduin is not merely the son of the time god, but one of his aspects, representing the end of time, since it is Alduin who will bring forth the apocalypse. Thousands of years before the events of the game, the Nords of Skyrim are cruelly subjugated by the dragons, led by Alduin, and the worship of the dragons becomes the predominant religion, employing the dragon priests who we see in-game. However, the enslaved humans eventually revolt against their rulers, with the help of Parthenax, Alduin's former chief lieutenant, who teaches them the power of dragon shouts. With this newfound knowledge, the heroes of old craft the Dragon Rend shout, the first dragon shout created by man for the sole purpose of defeating the dragons. However, Alduin himself is too powerful for the Nords to overcome, and so in a last-ditch effort to save themselves, they use an Elder Scroll to send Alduin forwards in time, and make him someone else's problem. The story picks up thousands of years later, with the last Dragonborn, who is apparently the first Dragonborn to appear in a while. Dragonborn are individuals who possess the soul of a dragon, and so are able to use the power of dragon shouts with little to no practice. They also have the ability to absorb the souls of dragons they have defeated in battle, and thus can permanently destroy a dragon. The gift of being born with the soul of a dragon was bestowed to mankind by none other than Akatosh himself. Just as the last Dragonborn is about to be executed for ambiguously and seemingly extra-legally prosecuted crimes, Alduin shows up, having just arrived from the past. The ancient prophecies state that the coming of Alduin and the return of the dragons, who by now had been extinct for a while, signals the coming of the apocalypse. However, it is also stated that the Dragonborn may be able to avert this doom and stop Alduin from devouring the world. To do so, we need to delve deep beneath the earth to recover the Elder Scroll, through which we catch a glimpse of the moment when Dragon Rend is used against Alduin. Using the shout, the Dragonborn defeats Alduin, who flees to Sovngarde, basically the Nord version of heaven, in order to devour the souls of the dead. After capturing and interrogating one of his lieutenants, we pursue Alduin to Sovngarde, where he is at last defeated, and the apocalypse seemingly forestalled. On the surface, the main plot of Skyrim hits all the beats of your typical hero's journey. Meeting with wise old men? Check. A descent into the underworld? Check. But the main emphasis in Skyrim is on the dragons. The main villains are dragons, and the hero himself is Dragonborn. Through these symbols, Skyrim perfectly depicts the hidden significance behind the dragon, and goes further to evolve the symbol in meaningful ways. Another thing which makes humans humans is our willingness to overcome enormous obstacles, even those with no apparent or immediate reward, and doing so is likened to battling against a dragon. And since dragons are inherently terrifying, being snake-like and all, it takes a huge feat of courage to be able to slay one. But remember, dragons don't actually exist, and yet they seem to originate from the human mind, implying that the dragon actually represents something internal, and something which exists inside all of us. This is represented by the Dragonborn, who literally possesses the soul of a dragon. Thus, when we speak of defeating a dragon, there are two directions where this can be applied, inwardly and outwardly, but these two directions are actually closely connected. The Dragonborn having the soul of a dragon represents us, since we also have something dragon-like inside of us, that is to say, something reptilian, beastly, dangerous, and yet immensely powerful. This is our instinctual, unconscious nature, the remnants of our animal past, and it is by subduing this unconscious part of ourselves that human civilization is able to go beyond the confines of our genetic nature. As humans, we constantly need to battle the reptile within, in order to participate in society. There is nothing natural about building temples or growing crops. These things are only accomplished when we struggle against our instincts. Psychologically speaking, there is something very dragon-like working deep inside our minds. The ancestors of mammals, the early synapsids, looked like this, and our reptilian predecessors lived on this planet for nearly 200 million years before we arrived on the scene. This animal psyche is an ever-present force in our minds, even today, and it is something to be feared. Dragons often appear as metaphors for the primordial past, in which our beastly nature ruled, and humans were, for the most part, unconscious, just as the dragons ruled over the ancient Nords thousands of years before the events of the game. We were, in a sense, subjugated by this reptile within, until at last we began to break away from nature and become increasingly civilized. The Nords of Skyrim threw down their dragon overlords by using their own creation, the Dragon Wren Shout, and thus became the masters of their own destiny. And this can be seen as a metaphor for when mankind began to resist its primitive instincts, to psychologically overthrow our inner animals. The story of human civilization is the story of overcoming our inherent biology in order to go beyond the merely natural. But this tale is also told in the story of each of our individual lives. Whenever we want to accomplish any difficult feat, whether it be mastering an instrument, earning a degree, or overcoming your depression, you essentially need to struggle against the part of yourself which resists your conscious intentions. This reptile mind has its own agenda, which frequently opposes what the ego wants and what society wants, and so a battle ensues between consciousness and the unconscious. It is success in this battle which pushes us away from primitivity and towards becoming more and more godlike. In most myths, defeating the dragon is often met with a reward. In Skyrim, the Dragonborn absorbs the souls of his felled dragons, using them to become stronger. This symbol also represents something which we all experience, namely the fact that if we succeed in defeating our internal dragon, we gain power over it. Just like the dragons of Skyrim, the unconscious mind is immensely powerful, and if we can channel this power properly, it can help us enormously. It is almost as though we need to tame our inner dragons. Otherwise, this inner beast will be unruly, uncontrollable, and even dangerous, since our shadow sides emanate from the unconscious. Winning the fight against the dragon also means turning it from an enemy into an ally. The more we train at a specific task, for instance the more we practice self-defense, the less conscious we need to be in order to defend ourselves, if the need should ever arise. In other words, the unconscious is now acting in accordance with the ego's intentions. Becoming the master of our evil natures not only allows the flourishing of civilization, but that of the individual. Although Skyrim initially depicts dragons as evil, it becomes clear that they are not inherently so, and they can struggle against their evil nature just as we can. The dragon Parthenax, a friendly dragon who aids us in his quest, was once Alduin's chief lieutenant during his reign over the human race, but he eventually decided to aid the humans in their rebellion. The friendly dragon represents an evolution of this symbol, since again, we can't constantly fight against something which is a part of us, but must instead turn the dragon into a friend who serves us rather than an enemy who hinders us. Parthenax himself also needed to overcome his primordial nature. As he himself states,
"We were made to dominate. The will to power is in our blood. You feel it in yourself, do you not? I have overcome my nature only through meditation and long study of the way of the voice. No day goes by where I am not tempted to return to my inborn nature. What is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort?
But as stated before, the dragon also represents something external and more universal. In general, dragons represent chaos, either the chaos which manifests from the unruly and unconscious psyche, or the chaos which manifests in the world itself. Alduin was a god of time, representing the end of time and the eventual destruction of the world. The universe, according to its own laws, is bent on entropy, or the ever-increasing chaos as time passes. The ever-turning wheel of time has always been a foe to mankind. This chaos has always been recognized as a threat to human civilization, and from it rises the unpredictability of nature. The dragon also frequently appears as mankind's struggle against nature and the inevitability of chaos. My favorite example of this is Yu the Great, who battled and defeated the water serpent Jianglu, as the monster was said to bring floods and destruction. However, the real Yu the Great was a man who was able to build a flood prevention system along the Yangtze River, and thus, in a sense, conquer nature to the benefit of his people. The story of him defeating the dragon was a mythical allegory for Yu's ingenuity. Alduin is also a monster, who brings with him chaos and destruction, but this chaos is not inevitable. Through our consciousness, humans have been able to subvert entropy and establish order amidst a chaotic world. This is why the external and internal dragon fights are ultimately the same. In order to conquer nature externally, we must do so internally, since this allows us to focus our conscious faculties towards solving problems. All things will inevitably succumb to entropy as the clock keeps ticking, but through great conscious effort, entropy can be delayed. In fact, consciousness itself seems to be able to overcome entropy, at least a little bit. By using our consciousness, humans can overcome the apparent limits imposed upon us by nature. Whenever chaos threatens us, we need to take an active and conscious stance, rather than being passive and acquiescent. This is a constant and seemingly never-ending struggle against destruction. And dragons are used as a metaphor for this, to indicate that this struggle is not at all easy, but it is in fact necessary. Humans, unlike other creatures, have the unprecedented ability to go far beyond our genetic programming, and reach the stars, in a struggle which is as ancient as the human species itself. This is why the dragon should be both revered and feared, as it stands as a symbol for how far we have come, and how far we have yet to go. It symbolizes the eternal struggle against nature, both our inner nature and the chaotic world of nature which surrounds us, and threatens us ever with destruction. The hero's conquest of the dragon is no easy feat, and our ancestors knew this. But they also knew that despite the difficulty, and despite the overwhelming danger, the battle against the dragon should never be surrendered, lest everything fall into chaos. For more information on this topic, see the links in the description.